Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a world where, every decision, big or small, is guided by a real sense of what's right.
Hmm.
Sounds like a utopia, doesn't it? But, how do we actually build that? A society truly rooted in human values, not just ideas on paper.
It's a huge question, yeah. And for this deep dive, we've got some fantastic material, mainly from this really comprehensive ethics class that lays out the groundwork pretty well.
Okay.
So, our mission today, for you listening, is to pull out the most vital stuff on how human values actually get instilled. We'll be looking specifically at schools, teachers, parents, society, even public administration, how they all fit together.
Right, how they all interact. And the challenges they face, too, I bet.
Right.
And, what does living a life of integrity really mean?
Exactly.
We're going to uncover some, hopefully, aha moments, maybe some surprising angles, maybe even some history stuff that makes you go, oh, that's what that means. Basically, this is your shortcut to getting properly up to speed on a topic that's just, well, incredibly important. So when we think about instilling values, yeah, schools often come up first, the formal setting. But it's got to be more than just teaching maths and history, right? It's about laying some kind of ethical foundation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was this thinker, Sutherland, who had a really quite radical insight here.
Okay.
He argued schools shouldn't just think about morality or, talk about it abstractly.
Mm-hmm.
His point was schools have to actively teach moral behavior. And this is the key part. Make sure that learning shows up in what students actually do, their decisions.
Ah, so not just knowing it, but living it.
Precisely. For Sutherland, it was about truthful living, not just like intellectual belief. It's the difference between knowing the definition of kindness
Yeah.
and actually being kind.
That knowing versus doing thing is huge.
Yeah.
So what specific values are we talking about here in a school setting?
Well, we're looking at things like interdependence, love, care, discipline, punctuality.
Yeah.
Scientific temper, too.
Right.
But one value that's really crucial and maybe often overlooked is belongingness.
Belongingness. Huh. Tell me more about that.
Its application is just incredibly broad. I mean, think about it. From an individual feeling connected, to their family, their job,
Sure.
all the way to tackling big societal problems like communal harmony or religious intolerance. Feeling like you belong, feeling connected. It's a surprisingly powerful way to address really complex stuff.
And it's not just from textbooks, right? Where else does this happen in school?
No, exactly. That's where co-curricular activities come in. They're incredibly powerful.
Like sports and clubs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Figures like Shankar Dayal Sharma, they really champion these. They saw them as vital for generating cooperation, love, mutual trust among students.
Makes sense.
Team sports, debate clubs, community service, they're like practical arenas for these values to actually grow.
Are there, real world examples, schools actually trying to do this stuff?
Oh, definitely. Institutions like the Art of Living schools are a good example. They're actively trying to integrate value education.
Okay.
And it lines up with newer frameworks like India's recent NEP 2020, the National Education Policy.
Ah, right.
Which, by the way, really emphasizes this holistic development idea, character building, moving beyond just memorizing facts.
It sounds so important, but I imagine it's not all smooth sailing. What are the big roadblocks schools hit?
Oh, it's tough. Yeah. One major hurdle is just conflicting messages.
How so?
Well, the values taught in school might clash, sometimes really sharply, with what kids pick up from their friends, their peer groups,
Right.
or just broader society, social media, phones, all that. Even different messages coming from home, from parents, can create confusion. It's like a constant battle for influence.
And then there's that pressure cooker focus on grades, exams, getting ahead. That seems to push values aside sometimes.
Exactly. That constant focus on finishing the syllabus, getting the marks, it often overshadows the whole holistic development piece.
Yeah.
We end up sort of prioritizing the training of the head, as they say, over nurturing the heart and soul. Value education can just get lost in the shuffle. And let's be honest, the profit motive, especially in some private schools, that can sometimes lead to neglecting value education too.
Can you give us some concrete examples where these problems really show up?
Sure. Unfortunately, yeah. We've seen things like that recent teacher recruitment scam in West Bengal. It even went to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
It's just a stark reminder, when unqualified or unethical people get into the system, well, it undermines the whole foundation of value education.
Yeah, how can you teach ethics if the teachers themselves?
Exactly. Or there was the Shalarth scam, with fake teacher IDs. That just erodes public trust, leads to money being misused. When the system itself is compromised, how can it effectively instill values? It's a huge problem.
Which brings us neatly to the teachers themselves. They're the ones on the front lines, right? It goes way beyond just delivering lessons.
Oh, absolutely. Teachers have to lead from the front, as they say, set positive examples.
Right.
It's not just about teaching from a book. It's about embodying those values they want to instill, how they act in class, how they talk to students, to colleagues. Right. It all sends a message.
So their own training, their own ethical development is like super important.
Precisely. Proper teacher training and ethical development is absolutely essential. They need to aim for desirable, constructive changes in students.
Constructive.
Yeah, focusing on constructive criticism, helping students improve, not just tearing them down. There's that saying, if you see someone making a mistake, don't just condemn them, either help them get better or, humbly accept your own limits.
And how do they make these values, which can feel a bit abstract, actually relatable for kids?
Well, by using engaging methods, like real-life examples are great, drawing from literature, films, other media.
Using stories.
Exactly. Stories. Things that resonate with students' own lives and experiences. That helps explain complex ideas.
This sounds like it also means helping students look inward a bit, understand themselves.
That's vital.
Yeah.
Nurturing that inner growth, encouraging students to self-reflect, be aware of their own emotions. That's key for continuous learning, self-improvement. We're talking about concepts like interiorizing, really taking ideas in, processing them inside and purifying the mind.
Yeah.
Sort of stripping away biases to see clearly. These things lead to deeper self-awareness.
And it feels like teachers have this incredible power almost to spark imagination, inspire hope. I'm thinking of someone like Abdul Kalam, the effect he had.
That's a perfect comparison. Teachers absolutely have that profound ability to ignite young minds, foster a real lifelong love for learning.
Yeah.
And that fits right in with modern education policies, like NEP, which now also talks about things like recognition of prior learning, RPL, encouraging learning throughout life.
Okay, now let's look at the curriculum itself. How are values woven into, say, different subjects? It's not just a separate ethics class, is it?
No, not at all. Ideally, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Values can and really should be interdisciplinary, deeply embedded.
Okay, like how?
We'll take linguistic values, for instance, especially relevant now, right? With recent linguistic debates, even tensions in places like Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. So language subjects, when they're taught emphasizing, shared heritage, clear communication, they can foster tolerance, unity, brotherhood, belongingness, interdependence, cooperation, love.
Wow, a lot.
Yeah. But conversely, we also have to actively warn against the negative stuff, like anger, hatred, or excessive pride tied to language, which can just cause division.
Right, it cuts both ways. And other subjects play a role, too.
Oh, absolutely. Social science, that naturally teaches social values. Environment, geography, they impart environmental values. Using energy wisely, sustainable development.
Makes sense.
Economics covers really vital economic values, like inclusivity, gender equality, parity. And civics builds those crucial civic values. Understand the Constitution, the rule of law. Every subject has a chance to reinforce these broader lessons.
But it sounds like a lot of the same challenges we talked about for schools overall. It's like not enough time, the focus on grades, conflicting messages from outside, lack of resources, maybe untrained teachers. Those probably apply here, too.
Yeah.
To teachers and the curriculum delivery.
That's a very fair point, yes. Those systemic issues, they tend to ripple through everything.
Yeah.
But teachers also face some unique hurdles. Students themselves, for example, might resist value education sometimes.
Really? Why?
Well, they might see it as, soft skills or behavioral science and prioritize getting top marks for exams or getting into competitive programs instead.
Okay. I can see that. And I guess teaching values must be really complex in a classroom with kids from all different backgrounds.
You're absolutely right. That's a huge challenge. Overcoming potential language or religious barriers in value education, making sure all cultural backgrounds feel respected and included. It's a really delicate, complex job for teachers. It takes enormous empathy, real understanding.
So if schools and teachers are building blocks, the first classroom, the foundation, that often starts at home. Sadhguru really hits this home, doesn't he?
He makes such a powerful point.
Yeah.
Sadhguru highlights that parents really have the primary responsibility for a child's overall value development.
Why primary?
Well, simply because kids spend most of their formative years at home. Way more time than they spend at school, usually.
That makes perfect sense when you put it like that. And there are those timeless sayings, right? Like, Mother is the first teacher, and home is the first school.
Exactly. And Pestalozzi, another thinker, he reinforced this too.
Yeah.
He saw home as a center of love and affection, the best place for education. It truly is the child's first and, you could argue, most influential classroom.
But parents, wow, they face their own set of really big challenges trying to instill values today.
They certainly do. Huge ones. External influences, peers, friends, social media, they're massive, often pushing conflicting values.
Right.
Then you've got the realities of modern families. Nuclear families, maybe both parents working. That can leave a gap or put an increased burden often on women who we know face higher job attrition rates because of it.
And it must be incredibly hard if the parents themselves aren't. Well, setting a great example.
That's profoundly challenging, yeah. If parents are involved in unethical stuff or just consistently model poor behavior, it seriously undermines anything they try to teach about values. And then there's the generation gap. Parental values might be quite different from their kids' values, especially on things like, say, gender equality, which is evolving fast. That creates friction, communication issues.
And sometimes the way parents try to discipline can actually backfire.
Oh, absolutely. Really harsh or aggressive methods like constant criticism, physical punishment, they can be seriously counterproductive.
How so?
They can lead to big communication gaps. Kids might just shut down and retreat into a shell. And crucially, just that simple communication gap itself. Or, outsourcing care maybe to crutches, or even just letting screens replace real interaction that can significantly impact how a child picks up values.
Okay, so given all those challenges, what are some actual strategies, things parents can do to instill values effectively?
Well, first, there's this idea of dynamic parenting. Parenting methods probably need to evolve a bit with the times, with different generations, but without ditching core principles, of course.
Adaptability.
Exactly. Parents should also try to create an environment that gives kids a sense of inner peace, contentment, achievement, appreciating their efforts, not just jumping on mistakes. Remember that story about the UP State topper girl?
Oh, yeah, who focused on her parents' support despite online hate?
That's the one.
Yeah.
That kind of positive reinforcement, that appreciation, it's vital.
So it's about equipping them for life, not just laying down rules.
Precisely. Instilling an awareness of truth, a real sense of responsibility, emotional maturity. Those are key. And parents have to lead by example. Avoid setting bad examples by seeming helpless or always distressed.
Right.
And critically, foster open dialogue. Just talk. Discuss issues with your kids. That's fundamental.
And what about things like self-discipline?
Yes, teaching self-discipline, self-control, encouraging confidence building, all hugely important. And cultivating that sense of belongingness and respect.
How?
Through things like family rituals, cultural gatherings, maybe volunteer activities together, like Shramdan, that idea of voluntary community labor or blood donation camps. Those shared activities really build character.
Do you have any, inspiring stories that really show this parental role in action?
There's that wonderful example that got quite a bit of attention globally of an Indian boy in Dubai.
What happened?
He found a lost wallet, stuffed with a lot of money, and he returned it. It was just such a clear demonstration of how the values his parents taught him translated into this really admirable action in the real world. He got publicly praised for it, became a bit of a local hero. It shows it can work.
Okay, moving beyond the family now.
All right.
Let's talk about the bigger system. Society, public administration. How do values play out or get challenged there? What are the hurdles in administration?
Oh, the challenges are substantial. Corruption, nepotism, favoritism, these are sadly prevalent issues that just eat away at public trust.
Yeah.
Then there's the problem of partial administration. The failure to apply the rule of law impartially often seems to favor the wealthy or connected.
Right, there's that cynical saying.
Exactly. Show me the person, I will show you the law. And look at the recent Poon Porsche case. Police officers suspended for allegedly changing blood samples after a tragic accident. It's a stark example of how the system can bend if individual integrity isn't rock solid.
And it sounds like often the focus in hiring or training is more on technical skills than on these broader values.
That's often the case, yes. A disproportionate focus on skill, professional competence, the head and hand, so to speak, rather than on holistic competence, things like emotional intelligence, wisdom, aptitude, attitude. Now, there are initiatives trying to change this, like India's Mission Karmayogi, aiming to make the bureaucracy more citizen-centric, more ethical. but actually embedding these values across the board, that remains a huge challenge.
And that gap between what the rules say, the ethics codes, and what actually happens, that must be pretty alarming sometimes.
It really is. Sometimes there's a shocking disconnect between the theory, the codes of conduct, and the practice on the ground.
Right.
Well, a recent example was that 237 crore advertising scam alleged in the previous Rajasthan government. Fraudulent payments, no proper tendering. It's just a painful reminder of how easily principles can get pushed aside for personal or political gain.
So what's the way forward? How do we embed values more deeply in administration?
Well, C. Rajagopalachari, a prominent Indian statesman, he offered a really profound insight. He said, essentially, a nation is nothing but a sum of individuals. Meaning, if you want to purify the national character, you have to start by purifying individual character through moral development, through rectitude. It's a call for individual responsibility for the collective good.
He had a great analogy for that too, didn't he? The monsoon.
He did, a really powerful one. He said national character is the keystone of public affairs. And improving it, he said, needs a monsoon of purity. Yeah, made up of little drops, which are individual characters developing. Each person's moral growth directly waters the nation's integrity. This is a lovely image.
This also brings us back to that idea of real transformation, doesn't it? Going beyond just following rules because you have to.
Yes, exactly. Think of it like a continuum. At one end, you have law. That's purely forced compliance. It leads to superficial acceptance, right? Like, you only obey traffic rules when you see a police car.
Okay.
Then maybe you have ethics. That involves some forced compliance too. Societal norms are followed. But maybe there's still some internal resistance, some reluctance.
Right. And the real goal?
The real transformation happens at the level of value consciousness. This is true. Internalized change. It's where, as the saying goes, a good person doesn't need law. That comes from deep self-reflection, that inward journey. Real human change happens there through genuine conviction, not just external pressure.
Beyond the individual, what strategic things can a system do to become more ethical?
Well, the practical stuff still matters. Clear codes of ethics, robust training programs, leaders who actually walk the talk, effective disciplinary measures, transparent feedback systems, all crucial.
Okay.
And also promoting diversity, gender, ethnic, cultural diversity in workplaces, ensuring accountability and transparency in how things are done, fostering an empathetic work culture. That's really relevant now, especially with recent discussions about the challenges women face in public service.
Okay, final piece then. Society itself. What's its role in this whole picture of building values? It feels like society has to set the overall tone.
It absolutely must. Society has to reflect values, lead from the front, especially now when maybe traditional values are being chipped away by materialism or skepticism. It needs to embody what matters for the next generation.
And didn't Amartya Sen talk about empowering people within society?
He did. His capability approach basically says society needs to give people the freedom to reach their true potential, to learn from their own experiences.
Not restrict them.
Exactly. Allowing that freedom is crucial for people to develop morally and intellectually.
And that includes holding on to valuable traditions.
Precisely. Society has a responsibility to explain and preserve valuable traditions that might hold deep ethical lessons, things passed down that could otherwise get lost.
Then there's the media. Huge influence, but like you said, a double-edged sword.
Totally. The media often sets negative examples, doesn't it? Paid news, yellow journalism, sensationalism, bias, misusing images. I mean, I've personally had my photo used for some scam report I had nothing to do with.
No way.
Yeah. But ideally, the media should set right examples, create awareness, report neutrally, without fanning flames or taking sides. Its power is just immense.
And even institutions we hold up as ideals, like the judiciary, they can struggle too sometimes.
Sadly, yes. Cases like the Yashwant Sharma case, while complex, they do highlight that challenge of upholding integrity even within the judiciary. It reminds us no institution is perfect. They're made of people.
So a really critical role for society is to actively disapprove of unethical behavior, not just shrug it off.
Absolutely critical. Going back to that Pune Porsche case, the way the family allegedly tried to cover things up, society should react strongly against that, demand accountability.
Right.
And this also touches on really difficult issues, like encounter killings. Look, the frustration with delayed justice is real, undeniably. But it's vital for society to stand firm on the rule of law, on due process, not an eye for an eye approach. That ultimately undermines the very values we're trying to build.
But on a more positive note, things like cultural events can really help build bridges, shared values.
Oh, definitely. Events like the Jashin Khusro Festival celebrating Sufi music and culture are wonderful examples. They foster tolerance, love, respect. They break down walls of difference through shared positive experiences.
But we also have to acknowledge the negative societal forces at play.
Yeah, absolutely. Things like just rampant materialism, greed, putting the wrong value on things, only caring about possessions, and negative peer pressure. These things can seriously undermine all the positive efforts from schools, parents, everyone else. Makes the job much harder.
Wow. Okay. So what does this all mean for us, for you listening? This deep dive, it's really shown us that instilling human values is truly a collective effort, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a complex tapestry woven by schools, teachers, parents, society, even the administrative system.
Exactly. It's not about pointing fingers, saying it's all the school's fault or it's the parent's job.
Right.
It's about seeing how interconnected all these roles are and the profound impact each one has on individuals and then, by extension, on the whole nation. From something as simple as teaching belongingness to something as complex as upholding the rule of law. Every single step really matters.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. If we connect all this to the bigger picture, that real transformation of a person from just following rules to truly embodying values, it seems to start somewhere deeper than just laws or external ethics codes. It starts with an inner journey, right? A personal thing.
And this brings up a really important question for you, our listener, to sort of mull over. How does all this collective effort, all these different players trying to instill values, how does it relate to that powerful idea you hear it all the time? Be the change that you want to see.
Yeah, think about it. Does the world's dog's curly tail, you know that old saying about trying to straighten something inherently bent? Does the world really need fixing by us? Or should we maybe focus more on our own inner peace, our own transformation, like Swami Vivekananda suggested? Or, as Marilyn Ferguson put it, maybe the gate of change is something only you can open, but from the inside. And perhaps, like Bernard Shaw reminded us, the reasonable man, maybe they adapt to the world's limits, focus on their own growth rather than getting stressed trying to change everything outside.
It really seems the ultimate responsibility and maybe the ultimate power lies within each of us.
Yeah.
We are, after all, those little drops that make up that monsoon of purity Rajagopalachari talked about. That journey of self-reflection, looking inwards. That seems to be the true path towards, well, a nation of beautiful minds.
Thank you so much for joining us on this really illuminating deep dive. We hope it's given you some fresh perspectives, maybe even inspired you to look within a little. Until next time, keep digging deeper.